Parents and coaches, what's happening? I actually can't believe what we're about to share with you right now because we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. Our industry, the youth athletic performance industry, sports performance enhancement, the very thing we're supposed to be doing, we as an industry have been sabotaging our athletes' success for the last 10 years. Back in the 2000s is when this stuff started to get really popular, right? Parents started to pay $200 to $400 a month to see their kids improve their speed, their agility, their quickness. And just that very fact that they were paying that kind of money for their kids to get faster and stronger, it lent to the problem in society that we value sports at such a high level. And it started to add to the pressure that kids felt that, man, my value and my worth lies in, am I getting better at sports? Am I getting stronger, faster, bigger, better? And so the problems began. And so our industry as a whole, sports performance enhancement, is responsible, at least in part, for sabotaging our athletes' long-term success, because we all know what happens when the pressure and the expectation is high to perform well. It actually sabotages the long-term performance. That's what started happening. Now, we here at PFP, we've actually been able to combat that, and honestly, we've tried to blow up our own success. We've tried to actually sabotage our own industry in order to do what we felt was best for the athletes. So we came up with these 6 steps that's allowed us to train over 300 athletes a year now. We've got over 300 kids that I think for the most part willingly,
I hope so,
willingly come in here. They want to come here. They try to make this part of their day, and we don't say that with an ego or pridefully, but we're very humbled by the fact that these kids actually want to be in here. And it's because these 6 steps. And I fear that too many athletic development programs out there and too many sports teams out there are only hitting on number 6. And they're wondering why it's so hard to influence and inspire their kids to greatness. It's so hard for them to get the kids to do what they want them to do because they're missing out on the 5 steps that actually address what your kids need the most nowadays. Kids today are different and they need something different. And if you don't give it to them, and if you skip straight to step number 6, they're not going to like it. They're going to resent it. They're not going to want to do it long term. So while it may be good for your short term success as a business or as a sports organization, it might be good for short term, it completely neglects the infinite game, as we call it. It completely neglects the long-term benefit to the kid, and it actually sabotages your own business in the process.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is you got to figure out what makes these athletes tick. And like Andrew said, it's different. But at the same time, if you study athletes from the past, I mean, the great coaches, they had this stuff down. It just wasn't put out there that much, right? John Wooden said he left one big thing off the pyramid. Love. Yep. Right? So it's been there for a long time, but we're missing it now more than ever. So this 6-step formula is going to help bring what you need into your team, into your gym, into your organization to make sure you set the athletes up that you're working with to thrive, not just show up and go through the motions, and then that kid gets labeled lazy or whatever it might be. So this is going to be that foundation that really helps propel to success.
Yep. And you need a method, by the way. Even if you do these 6 things by chance, just because of who you are, if you want it duplicated throughout your team, throughout your organization, you need to have a method. You need to have steps. So step number 1, the thing that we do, we aim to do it, and we pretty much do at this point, every single human being that walks through our doors, but definitely every single kid that walks through our doors, the very first thing we know that they so desperately need is an unconditionally loving and enthusiastic greeting. And that sounds so simple, but don't you want to feel special when you walk into a place? Your sports team, your sports organization, when you were a kid, was it just like you showed up and it was just like, oh hey, high five, fist bump, let's go stretch? A lot of kids are in school all day long, and maybe they have some engaging teachers, maybe they got some awesome, energetic teachers, and but for the most part, what they're missing is this. They're missing some enthusiasm, they're missing a VIP feeling, they're missing the feeling of feeling special, right? All of us want to feel special, all of us want to feel accepted, so every kid that walks in our doors, gets a enthusiastic greeting by first name. Gotta give their first name because the first name is the sweetest name in the English dictionary to any person, especially kids.
Travis is.
Travis
is a great
Now
name.
Andrew is.
Yeah, for you. And this one's a big one. I mean, it sets the tone for the entire workout. No matter how your day went, if you had the worst day, if someone greets you at the door with some energy, it's contagious, right? The second you walk into the gym, there should be a little bit of an energy transfer, all right? And the reality is there's a lot of negativity outside of these doors, and I'm really lucky to be in here. So we want to kick that energy up a little bit, kick that positivity up a little bit, get the mind right to get ready for the workout. So that's a huge one that when I first saw it, I'm like, it's not huge, it's not that big of a deal. But I'm telling you, that is an absolute game changer. If you're a coach, use your athlete's name. How can I know my athlete's goals if I'm not giving their names first? So that's a big one.
Yep. So step number 2, after you've greeted them, which your greeting could be unique to you, but you need a greeting in some way. After you've greeted them, there's got to be a connection, because just giving them a hug, giving them a hug, dapping them up, that's great and all. Is how you do it? Yeah, like that. The greeting's good, but then step 2 is really, you got to find some way to build a bridge and make a connection. Another human need. It's not just a preference, it's a human need, is to connect with another person. And the 12-year-old that walks in here that all they like is video games and they kind of like sports, we have to connect with them a little bit differently, right? We have to speak in terms of their interests. So we have to ask them about their video games. You done anything great lately? Do you see that kid that makes millions of dollars a month online streaming video games? Like, we got to find ways to connect, and we have to talk about what other people like. So we just very simply, purposefully talk about what our athletes like and find a way to connect with them. And you'll know if you're successful by their body language and how excited they are about talking with you. Because people, especially kids, they don't like to talk about things that they don't like to talk about. Right?
No, I mean, no one really does. If I try to talk to a non-football fan about the Dallas Cowboys hiring a new coach, they're not going to care, right? I'm going to lose them pretty quick. Tiny is great at this one, and it's really cool for me to see these athletes come in that are really reserved, really introverted, really shy. They just don't talk to people, and watch them as they've been in here for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Watch them open up, and then all of a sudden they're the ones connecting with the newer athletes coming in. So that once shy, introverted athlete is now bouncing around, bringing energy, and they're transferring it to other people in the gym. So this connection piece that we bring to the athletes then in turn start bringing it to other people, and it's contagious, right? And it works on that interpersonal communication skills that we're lacking today with technology. So that's a big one.
Amen. Step number 3 is a quick one. This is very simple, but the next step in our process is you got to foam roll, right? Physical injuries are at an all-time high. Millions of kids are hospitalized every year. Over half of all injuries in youth sports today are preventable. These are studies. These are the facts. And the fact is that if you foam roll, we know that you are less likely to get injured. So that's just step 3 in our process.
And while they're rolling, a lot of times we're connecting too.
Connect and roll.
So we have people with them,
Step 4 is not that one. Step 4 is, how many times have coaches said, yeah, we teach life lessons. We're all about teaching life lessons. Yet if you look at their daily game plan, right, their schedule, what they prioritize first at practice, there's no sign of teaching life lessons. It's just like, I hope it happens organically. I hope there's an opportunity to teach if there's time. For us, before the workout even starts, we have to put it in, we have to plan for it, otherwise we're not going to do it. So we have a life lesson, motivational message that we circle the athletes up, and we deliver every time. And here's the crazy thing. I used to think that a lot of athletes wouldn't like this. I used to think that they would be like, oh, come on, don't talk to me about life. And even when we're sitting in these circles, some of them are like doing this, they're looking around, they're looking down at the ground. And for a long time I wondered, is it really sinking in? And then we started to get letters. We got one particular letter from a young lady who wrote to us and said, more or less, these motivational messages have literally changed my life. I am a more positive person now, and I think completely differently than I used to. And she happened to be one of the people that would look at the ground the whole time. But it sinks in. So step number 4, you gotta have some way that you are intentionally, every day, every week, dripping these life lessons in. We've got a 12-month formula, we've got all these things that we do, but at least start somewhere and have it consistent.
Yeah, and we meet weekly on it to make sure we're always revamping it, because if it's not evolving, it's dying, right? Kids need something different each year, and some things are more pressing on our hearts that we think they need a little bit more of. But if you peg it in school, you're never really taught leadership growth and the different developmental areas that we have in here. So that's a big one that if you're not planning, how do you know you're getting it done, right? If you're not tracking it, how do you measure it? So big thing is that's a huge one that we're missing because in school you're not getting it organically a lot of times.
Step number 5, definitely not rocket science either. But if you look at the amount of injuries that are happening in today's sports, and you just talk to some athletes and ask them, what are your warm-ups like?
Oh, man.
They reveal to us, at least, and maybe they're lying, I don't know, but I don't think they're lying. They reveal to us that their warm-ups consist of a couple jumping jacks, a couple of skips, maybe some like these knee pulls, and then let's start practice. So let's go from pretty stationary, I've been sitting in my chair all day, to high intensity cutting and jumping. No wonder why ACL tears are at an all-time high. So what comes next in our warm-ups is, first, you gotta be sweaty before you are ready. So like they actually start sweating before their workout. And then we also make some fun in there. We put gameplay, we put connection stuff, we have competitions. I guess you call it team building, if you will, but our warm-ups, again, we meet on those pretty regularly too to figure out how do we evolve it? How do we add some novelty, some newness to it so that the athletes are engaged, so that they're having fun, but they don't even know they're starting to sweat because they're having fun. So that's part of it. Joint mobility, we do these things too, but that's the warm-up.
And the big thing is you're bridging the gap, okay? Again, when an athlete comes in, they could have had the worst day of the year. But at this point, you went through 5 different steps that now you're bridging a little bit of a gap. You should have transferred some energy. You should have spoke some life into them. The warm-up's that last piece where you're starting to flip that switch. So there is gameplay, but things are getting a little more detail-oriented and getting them ready for that workout that they're about to endure. So not only are you having fun and you're getting sweaty, but mentally you're clicking in and physically you're starting to click in and get that body ready to get after it.
Last step. I know a lot of coaches out there nowadays, probably the majority of coaches are baby boomers, or they're in those older ages. Not older ages, don't take offense to that, but they grew up in a time where they had to work hard. You had to work hard. You were forced to work your tail off, and there's a lot of talk today that young people, this new generation, they don't work hard, they're entitled, but it's a learned behavior. We know entitlement's learned, and so the parents that had to work really hard, they wanted to make sure they made life easy for their kids, and so now their kids don't work as hard, and they wonder why. That's why. But here's the thing. We try to impose what worked for us onto our athletes that we coach sometimes. So if you are naturally a very hard worker and your athletes don't train hard, right? They don't get after it. They don't put their all into it. You say to yourself, what's wrong with them? They need to be more like me. They need to train like I train. They need to work hard. Why don't they do that? It's because you missed all these things that are necessities for today's athlete. Today's athlete needs this stuff that produces a feeling on the inside of them that they trust you, they respect you, they feel love from you, they feel connection to you, and then they give you their best and they will train hard. Even the kids that used to be told, you're not a hard worker, you're lazy, you don't give your best. It's like, no, you don't get it. I want to work hard, but I've never been given a reason why I need to. So that's our responsibility, to deliver these 5 steps. And then step 6, guys, we get our kids to train hard in here, but we have to work hard to get them to train hard. I think today, in today's day and age, kids are not going to work hard for you unless you work hard for them. Give and receive, right?
Yeah, and the big thing is once that rapport's built, they're going to push a little harder for you. I was talking to a middle school basketball coach, and one thing that I was blown away by was he saw the long-term picture for his athletes. So sometimes he took kids on his team that necessarily weren't good enough to make the cut, or they didn't work hard enough yet, right? But he took them on there and he let them practice with a better team consistently. And what I saw was I went and watched this varsity game, and this kid that was on the cusp at the beginning was now shining. And he was working hard, and he was playing hard, he was putting it out there, but he didn't have it right away. What that coach did was he took time to build these things up, and then he implemented it, and he got more out of that kid than that kid would have ever dreamed of doing for himself. So a good coach can master these 6 steps and then implement it over years. Now some kids, they won't train hard in the first month, right? Some kids, you can get this really fast, but you got to understand it's a long-term picture, and eventually the lights will click for that athlete to train hard for you. But don't give up. You don't know how close you are to getting that athlete to click over and start giving it for you.
Good stuff. Guys, I hope you took something valuable from this. One of the 6 steps, maybe all 6 of them you want to implement. Thanks so much for watching these Facebook Lives. We seriously appreciate you spending the time to do this, and you're where we are. You care about what we care about, and that is seeing change happen. We want to see change happen in youth sports. We want to see millions of kids across the world, millions, become more confident, courageous, and successful leaders, because that's what's going to change the world. So, thanks for watching again, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.